All right, Paul Spontia. I'm the CEO of the IT company, and I'm with, I guess, one of the people I've known the longest in my life. So, we're from the same little small hometown nestled in Upper East Tennessee. So this is Kent Cunningham. He is actually a Microsoft employee. So Kent, you can introduce yourself and tell people what you do.
Yeah, I started out on the same street as Paul. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the federal civilian government business at Microsoft. It's been a fun time these past couple of weeks,
Yeah.
as you can imagine, helping customers adjust to our temporary yet new normal.
So anything that we should know about that's like what's coming, or anything in Teams that's really important in the whole anything in the suite. I mean, I think you mentioned Stream. Like, I don't think anybody knows even hardly what that is from a customer perspective. I do. I mean, I use it quite a bit, but I don't think
Sure.
that people really realize how to leverage those things. So anything that you feel like people should really be paying attention to?
I think the first point you've already kind of mentioned in your last statement is a lot of folks will purchase a suite like Office 365 for 2 or 3 core capabilities and not realize there's a suite of 20 other things that they could leverage. So I would say that from a investment perspective, understand what you own. Understand that the reason you went to SaaS in the first place was so that someone else could bring you offers and solutions, and that you would be constantly updated instead of waiting every 3 to 5 years for an update cycle. So make sure that you're constantly asking yourself, what are those new functionalities that have become part of the platform? We have customers today, if you're making separate investments for things like multi-factor authentication or data loss prevention, or how do I do email spam protection, how do I do anti-malware for my OneDrive and my SharePoint files. If you're making separate investments for those, realize that for a lot of our customers, depending upon the level of the service that you've acquired, that functionality is part of the suite that you already own. So I think that's the first critical thing. As far as other features, Paul, there's new things all the time, right? And so one of the features that I mentioned earlier, I can take a look at some of these just quickly. I mentioned background effects, and I showed that a little bit earlier. I mentioned raise my hand, and I don't know if you can see that on your end, but it would raise a hand and say that I have a question. Yeah.
I can't wait to watch the video, so I can.
Yeah, we have the option to turn on live captions, right? And if I turn on live captions, then it will actually, in real time, take my voice, begin to send that out, pull that back in so that you can see them in real time on the screen. Hopefully you're seeing those on the bottom of your screen. I certainly have those on my end at the moment.
I turned it on my side, so now I see it.
And it understands both languages that I speak, which is English and East Tennessee English.
Yep.
I do believe this service at the moment is English only. Of course, that'll be changing. We're the company's been great about being multilingual as across the board. As a matter of fact, you might even remember in Skype, they went so far as to take Klingon and translate that into a language. So to my knowledge, that's the first time that's ever been done. But the variety, or the option to bring things like this to people for the hearing impaired, or even for those who just want to go back and watch a recording of the video. Sometimes I find myself in airports, or even, I hate to admit it, multitasking in calls, but you'll watch a video and read the closed captions because you're not able to listen to it in the environment that you're in at the moment. So features like that are just great, I think, for folks that are just getting into this type of thing and trying to make these as open and inclusive as possible.
Yeah. Couple things I've noticed. I'm curious if you've seen, or if you guys have been able to leverage it. One is Whiteboard. Have you begun to leverage that at all? I tried and successfully. I actually was on a call. I got my iPad up and joined it separately and muted everything and launched the Whiteboard app and was able to kind of do some stuff with it.
Absolutely. We have the Whiteboard functionality. We use it a lot when we're discussing projects, architectures for customers. That's when we predominantly use it.
Okay.
When we're trying to explain, things like, hey, the data sits here, the process sits here, the customer network is connected in this way. It really helps in technical conversations for that type of thing. I've seen people use it to take notes in real time, so that people are paying attention and agreeing upon what the notes would actually be.
Sure.
It's kind of a social thing of interest that those of us with Surface tablets it's interesting, right? If you go into a meeting and you set your laptop up and you begin to type, people are thinking, well, is Paul paying attention, or is he on his Facebook, or is he shopping for a car, or what's he doing?
Yeah.
If you go in and you set down your Surface tablet and you begin to write, taking notes, that's a much more socially acceptable thing.
Yep.
And I've seen folks do that on a whiteboard so that others around the room, can we agree and get consensus on what the meeting notes are? So a lot of different ways to leverage that.
Cool. And what about Power Automate? Are you seeing that start? I mean, it's kind of like a lot of people have known of things like Zapier and IFTTT, and that's kind of Power Automate is sort of that. Probably on steroids, but is that something that you've seen? Are you guys taking advantage of it? I'm trying to figure out how to take advantage of it.
Right. So Power Automate, first of all, for anyone who hasn't heard of that, Power Automate used to be called Flow.
Yeah.
And we've made that part of the Power Platform with Power BI and the Power Apps suite. And there is even a new component. So what Flow was, right, was for you to be able to set up a flow to create some automation based on a trigger. And you go in and you set up your triggers and say, when this happens, do this, right? So when this field changes in this sheet, email it to Paul, right? Mm-hmm. Or copy it off to this person, or move that data to whatever third-party platform. And there's, I want to say hundreds, I don't remember the exact number, but hundreds of connectors inside of Flow, so that data doesn't have to be inside of a Microsoft platform, right? You connect that to Salesforce or Google Platforms, or whatever that third-party organization might be. By the same token, Power Automate has taken on a new product recently that is an RPA product inside of Power Automate. And so with Power Automate, if you're used to robotic process automation, or you're familiar with what that is, it's really the ability to say, let's take repetitive tasks and automate them. So this is great for, let's imagine that inside of every organization, someone has the job, hopefully, of making sure that our purchase orders actually line up to our finances, right? So is what we're billed for what we actually purchased, and is that what we received? Yep. Right. So processes like that can be automated through tools like RPA and the Power Automate RPA tool, so that we set up what they call it a bot, or some in industry call it a robot. And you set up a bot that reads Form A and extracts the data for it, and then reads Forms B and extracts the data from it, determines if they align, and does whatever you want with that process from there, right? Send it back, kick it back, automatically pay the invoice, those types of things. A very simple case for that. But a lot of organizations, especially large organizations, are inundated with paperwork and just redundant processes that they need to automate. That's why you've seen RPA really take off. I think every major organization that I've been involved with has some type of an RPA lead at this point. And It's been their job to figure out what type of processes inside of their organization that they can automate, and which ones would be a candidate for that. The matching up invoicing to billing and ordering is simply just one of those that everybody has.